An ancient tomb dating back 1,000 years was discovered. My husband's childhood sweetheart begged me to withdraw my application to lead the excavation team and let her take the position instead. I knew full well she wasn't up to the task, and given the immense significance of this tomb's excavation to the entire international archaeological community, I firmly refused. The childhood sweetheart tearfully quit the archaeological team and, in a turn of events, joined a gang of tomb raiders, ultimately meeting her death during a loot. Meanwhile, I successfully led the team in excavating the tomb, uncovering a previously unknown civilization's remains, and was promoted to become the youngest director in the archaeology department. But during a subsequent tomb collapse, while we awaited rescue, my own husband, who was on the same team, knocked me unconscious and sealed me alive inside a coffin. He told the rescue team that arrived, "There's no one in there," at my funeral. My husband stared at my portrait with a deranged expression. "It was you who stole Meow Meow's position as team leader, driving her to tomb raiding and her death in that tomb. Whatever she suffered, you will suffer twice over. You owe her this." When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day my childhood sweetheart was about to become the archaeology team leader. "Sister Sukan, I just need one more research project to qualify for a full professorship. You're already a professor, could you let me have this one? Let me lead this tomb excavation." In the spacious, well-lit conference room, people had already begun to leave. Miao Yusen walked over to me, looking at me with pleading eyes. I could only stare at the notebook in front of me, scarcely able to believe that I had been reborn. I had been reborn to the moment when Miao Yusen asked me to give up leading the expedition into the tomb. In my previous life, Miao Yusen used the exact same plea, begging me to step aside from the competition for the lead archaeologist position. But I knew all too well that her field archaeology skills were amateurish at best. She'd mostly coasted by on luck and connections to get where she was. Moreover, this excavation was of critical importance. Higher-ups were placing great emphasis on the tomb's discovery, and the initial exploration phase couldn't afford a single misstep, so I firmly turned her down, stating that the selection would be based on merit alone, even if she wasn't the team leader. As a member of the archaeological team, this expedition would have been a shining highlight on her professional record, but Miao Yusen felt I was looking down on her. She accused me of throwing my weight around, quit the team in tears, and started working with tomb raiders in their illicit trade. However, with the tomb excavation imminent, I didn't dwell on her departure. I led the archaeological team in successfully exploring the ancient tomb. We successfully retrieved highly valuable first-hand materials and discovered the ruins of a previously unrecorded civilization. The findings from this project propelled me to become the youngest director in the archaeology department, and my reputation soared. Later, during an emergency repair of an ancient tomb, the burial chamber collapsed, trapping my husband, Wu Yicheng, and me inside as we awaited rescue. But he knocked me unconscious, stuffed me into the tomb's coffin, and left me directly on top of a 1,000-year-old corpse, sealing me in to die. When the rescue team finally arrived, he told them with a straight face that he was the only one there. Wu Yicheng stopped the rescue team from opening the coffin. "There's no one in there," he said. "If you open it, the corpse poison might escape." After we got out, Wu Yicheng immediately applied for my death certificate. On the surface, it was flawless. He even held a funeral for me. He stared at my memorial photo with a deranged expression, as if I were his father's murderer. "It was you who stole Meow Meow's position as captain, driving her to tomb raiding and her death in that tomb. You will suffer double what she endured. This is the debt you owe her, and only your life can repay it. Go down there yourself and beg Meow Meow for forgiveness." My heart turned to ashes. Only then did I realize my own spouse saw me as a mortal enemy, harboring this deep-seated hatred for so long, all for the sake of taking my life. I cannot accept this. I will not rest in peace. When I heard Miao Yusen's demand for the second time, I felt neither anger nor resentment. Instead, I couldn't help but laugh, and the laughter grew louder and more uncontrollable. The agony of betrayal and death intertwined with the sheer astonishment of getting a second chance. I was laughing and crying all at once, my behavior bordering on madness. Wu Yicheng also approached, and seeing my bizarre state, he furrowed his brow deeply. "Sukan, what's your problem? Did you even hear what Meow Meow said? The team leader position isn't that important to you anyway. What's the big deal about letting her have it?" I stared him down, letting out a cold laugh. "Why should I? If she's capable, she should earn it herself instead of resorting to these cheap tricks." Even if I had to do it all over again, my answer would still be the same. My refusal was even more direct than in my past life. Miao Yusen's eyes instantly welled up with glistening tears, and her voice trembled with a sob. Sister Sukan, my mother is still in the hospital, waiting for money to save her life. I'm counting entirely on this project to get promoted to full professor so I can use the salary to pay for her treatment. I'm begging you, I know you look down on me. And you can do whatever you want to me, but please, for my mother's sake, just help me this one time. She was crying pitifully, tears streaming down her face, and even made a show of trying to kneel and kowtow to me, but before her knees could even bend, Wu Yicheng stopped her. The people who hadn't left yet gathered around, hearing Miao Yusen's tearful plea. They all started berating me for being heartless. Sukan, you're already a professor. Giving up the team leader position wouldn't affect you much, but for Miao Yusen, it's a lifeline. How can you just stand by and watch her drown? Just because you're a professor, you think you're better than everyone else, picking on the weak. That's just rotten behavior. If you had any compassion, you'd give the opportunity to Miao Miao. She's counting on that money for a life-saving treatment. Wu Yicheng also stared at me coldly, his face full of disgust. Sukan, will you stop being so selfish? This project is crucial for Miao Miao. You can afford to be casual about it, but she can't. With an attitude like yours, we'd be better off letting Miao Miao lead the team. He said it with such finality, cutting me down to nothing in just a few words. I was so angry I almost laughed. What does he mean? I'm being casual about it. How much have I put into this project? Does Wu Yicheng have any idea? Mountains of reference books are still piled up in the study. The notes I compiled fill up a thick notebook, and my computer is packed with sketches for this tomb exploration. I've been burning the midnight oil for 2 whole weeks, just to make this archaeological expedition as thorough as possible. What does Miao Yusen even know? She can't even name the basic tools needed for an archaeological dig. Anyone can see the immense value of this dig. The competition for the position of team leader is absolutely fierce. After all the blood, sweat, and tears I poured into this preparation, they think a few words from them can make me give it all up. What gives them the right? I've said it before, if she's so capable, let her compete fairly. Even if I step down, Miao Yusen is the last person who should become team leader. Miao Yusen was still weeping, tears streaming down her face, looking utterly wronged. If Sister Sukan insists on being the team leader, then I'll just withdraw from the archaeology team. Staying here would only be a bother to her anyway. It's okay, Miao Miao, really, I wish you and Brother Yicheng all the best with your work. Wu Yicheng grew even more furious, jabbing a finger in my face as he yelled, just because you outrank Miao Miao, do you think that gives you the right to bully a junior? Have you no shame? You'd better take the initiative now, go to the supervisor. Put in a good word for Miao Miao, and recommend her for the promotion, otherwise, don't expect my forgiveness. I looked at Wu Yicheng, utterly disappointed. How can he utter such shameless words with a straight face, without a hint of shame or hesitation? I waved a hand dismissively and said with sarcasm, don't pin that label on me. I don't deserve the honor. I'll be the one to leave the team, so you two can have your perfect sibling act all to yourselves. Count me out of this archaeological project. Do whatever you want. Miao Yusen's expression changed, still hoping to piggyback on my work. She immediately changed her tune. Sukan, quitting the team is a serious matter. Even if you don't want me as the team leader, you don't have to threaten me with that. I rolled my eyes. Are you talking about yourself? The others finally caught on, and it became clear to most that I was the main force behind this archaeological dig. Giving up the lead role and quitting the team are on completely different levels. If I really left, the final operation would be twice the effort for half the results. So they started trying to talk Miao Yusen out of running for team leader again. They said she simply wasn't up to the task, that she was in over her head. Others made snide remarks, accusing her of being selfish and putting her own interests above the team's. They claimed her story about her mother's medical bills was just an excuse to grab the leadership role, since the dig hadn't even started and a promotion or raise was nowhere in sight. Miao Yusen turned deathly pale, looking as if she might collapse at any moment. Wu Yicheng, his heart aching for her, pulled her close and roared at me, Sukan, how far will you push someone before you're satisfied? You're so petty, hounding her relentlessly over a team leader position. Didn't you say you wanted to quit the team? Don't come crying to me later. Even if you beg, I won't take you back. I scoffed coldly and turned to go find the person in charge. Fine, I'll go file a report to quit the archaeological team right now. Seeing that I was actually leaving, Wu Yicheng grabbed my wrist instead and said impatiently, stop making a scene, will you? You've prepared for this project for so long. There's no way you just quit on a whim. Look, you're not the team leader. But you'll still be calling the shots on the ground. Is that good enough for you? Is a title really worth all this fuss? I'd never seen someone take advantage of a situation to such an extreme. I shook him off and headed straight for the supervisor's office. I said I was quitting the excavation team, but I never actually intended to leave the project. Only by sending Miao Yusen in first can we make them face reality. Then I can proceed with the next phase of the plan. I met with the person in charge, and as expected, he instinctively rejected my request to leave the team, wanting to keep me, but Miao Yusen wanted to be the team leader and was sulking on the side, looking all wronged. I went even further, declaring that I would not join any archaeological team Miao Yusen was part of and was determined to quit. With someone like her as the leader, I wouldn't dare to take part in the operation. I'd have no idea how I'd end up dead. Wu Yicheng immediately stood by Miao Yusen's side and angrily accused me. In the end, after much persuasion from the person in charge, I was kept on as a project advisor, but would not be entering the tomb for the initial archaeological work. As I was leaving, Wu Yicheng shot me a smug, sidelong glance. You're the one who chose to withdraw. When we make discoveries in the ancient tomb, don't come crawling back claiming you were part of the archaeological team. I couldn't be bothered to argue with him any further. I turned and walked out, announcing my resignation from the archaeology team on social media. I also threw some thinly veiled shade at Wu Yicheng and Miao Yusen, visible to all our colleagues in the field. Immediately, people started coming to me with roundabout questions, fishing for details. I just kept sighing, my words dripping with resentment at the sheer injustice of it all. My apprentice, Fang Zhixing, who had also joined the team, came to me looking furious, saying he would leave with me. I shook my head. Zhixing, I need you to do me a favor. Before long, news of Miao Yusen's forceful power grab had spread throughout the entire base. People whispered among themselves, but it didn't stop her from leading the team into the ancient tomb. Just before entering the tomb passage, Wu Yicheng even came over to gloat to me. So what if you're a professor? You still have to listen to me. All the credit for this dig goes to Miao Miao. I'm warning you, don't even think about competing with her. I watched them descend into the tomb with a calm and steady heart. If you want the credit, you have to do the work well. For Wu Yicheng to be this confident in Miao Yusen, he must be head over heels for her. The archaeological team descended into the tomb, originally planning to excavate the passageway. Unexpectedly, they turned back and returned to the surface within half a day. The lead called me, sounding completely frantic, and asked me to take over the excavation project again. This time, I didn't refuse. I agreed right away, grabbed the files, and headed over. On the way, I overheard some conversations and learned that Miao Yusen, terrified of potential traps in the tomb passage, had recklessly decided to just blow the whole mechanism array to pieces. Even though they stopped her, it still caused a minor cave-in. The whole team was nearly trapped inside and suffocated. I knew Miao Yusen was foolish, but I never imagined she could be this foolish. When I arrived at the office, the atmosphere was heavy, and the person in charge looked rather displeased. I didn't waste any words, quickly handed over a few tasks to him, and rushed through the process. No sooner had I finished than Wu Yicheng and Miao Yusen stormed in from outside, full of bluster. Su Kan, I can't believe you'd stoop to something so vile just to sabotage Miao Miao. You're a disgrace to the entire field of archaeology, and you're certainly not fit to be my wife. I frowned. Are you out of your mind? You nearly blew up the tomb and got the whole team killed, and now you're standing here shouting. Miao Yusen hid behind Wu Yicheng, her eyes rimmed with red. Sister Su Kan, didn't you tell me to do this? You said we were testing a new excavation method. But I never thought you'd be so reckless with people's lives. Wu Yicheng slammed a stack of documents down in front of me. So that's why you made Miao Miao the team leader and then quit the team yourself. It was all to set her up to take the fall for you. Everyone present was stunned, and murmurs rippled through the crowd. I glanced at the documents unhurriedly and made a call to my apprentice. Zhixing, bring your equipment and come here now. Fang Zhixing acknowledged immediately. I then thought of something else and told him to find my collection of papers as well. Wu Yicheng listened to my phone conversation and let out a contemptuous snort. What? Do you think producing your papers will absolve you of your wrongdoing? Even with all your academic achievements, they're all going down the drain today. A person who disregards human life and has no morals is unfit to be a professor. You'll be condemned by everyone. Annoyed by what I was hearing, I picked up the scattered documents from the floor. Upon closer inspection, they were the blasting analysis diagrams I had left in the room earlier. No wonder Miao Yusen went crazy and used explosives to destroy the mechanisms in the tomb. Holding these diagrams, I turned a cold gaze toward Miao Yusen. Where did these come from? Miao Yusen avoided his gaze. But, you gave these to me. You asked me to run the tests for you. Why else would I suddenly use explosives? I was tricked too, Yicheng. I'm so scared, woo woo woo. As she spoke, she began to cry, burying herself in Wu Yicheng's arms. Wu Yicheng held her, his eyes ice cold. Su Ken, you dare threaten Miao Miao. This matter won't end well today, I scoffed. Just you wait, once Fang Zhixing gets here, the whole truth will come out. You're just trying to stall. What can a mere PhD student like Fang Zhixing do, unless he was in on this whole harmful scheme of yours? Now that I think about it. He reacted the fastest back in the tomb. Could it be he knew all along and was just standing by, watching on purpose? Su Ken, you're utterly despicable. Wu Yicheng's mind was racing with wild assumptions. The more he spoke, the more worked up he became, convinced he had uncovered the truth. You're not even saying a word. See, you can't weasel your way out of the facts, can you? I slammed my hand on the table in frustration. Shut up. Can't you just wait quietly? You've been talking for ages without a shred of proof. Isn't this just you making baseless accusations against me? Miao Yusen leaned against Wu Yicheng and started sniveling again. How could we possibly have any evidence? Sister Su Ken, you were afraid of being held accountable if something went wrong, so you only gave me this blueprint and nothing else. But even if it ruins my future, I can't cover for you. I have a responsibility to the people and the cultural relics you might harm. I scoffed. A single blueprint is enough to convict me. Since when did passing judgment become so easy? Everyone in the office looked bewildered, but with Miao Yusen and I giving conflicting accounts, no one spoke for a moment. Wu Yicheng, his face flushed with anger, spoke up with an air of righteous indignation. I'll ask you directly, are these blueprints yours or not? I glanced at him and nodded. That much is true, but, before I could finish, Wu Yicheng cut me off without a hint of courtesy. He wore a smug, triumphant look, as if he had everything under control. All right, I knew it. At least you're being honest. Would have been easier if you'd just admitted it sooner instead of dragging it out. You really are a piece of work. I slapped him hard, yet my mind was eerily calm. Wu Yicheng, let me say it one more time. Whatever Miao Yusen did has nothing to do with me. You're my husband, yet you take her side at every turn. Sometimes I really wonder, who is it you truly love, me or her? Wu Yicheng's expression changed. A flash of guilt crossed his face and vanished in an instant. He quickly adjusted his expression, looking at me with utter contempt as if he had seen right through me. Su Ken, we're talking about how you tricked Miao Miao into doing the experiment for you. Do you have any idea how dangerous that was? Don't think you can dodge this by changing the subject. You won't get away with it. I stared unblinkingly at Miao Yusen. My new tomb opening method, me finding test subjects, me shirking responsibility. Miao Yusen, are you really sure you want to pin all these accusations on me? Her face paled, and she ducked behind Wu Yicheng, her expression full of fear. Sister Su Ken, stop pressuring me. Your threats are useless. Everyone knows what you did. Confessing is the only right path now. If you hadn't tricked me, why would you have given up the team leader position and left the archaeological team? Now that we've failed, it's just so convenient that you're back as the leader. Wasn't this all part of your plan? I sneered. That's all just wild speculation on your part. You have no evidence, but you're full of accusations. Just then, a voice cut through the air. Who says there's no evidence? A middle-aged woman entered slowly, her expression stern. Yet her gaze carried an uncomfortable sense of scrutiny and appraisal. It was Professor Wang, Miao Yusen's academic advisor. Seeing her, Miao Yusen's eyes lit up, and she walked over with a pitiful, pleading look. Professor, I almost didn't get to see you again. I frowned. What did Professor Wang have to do with this? Why was she here? The next second, she gave me the answer. Professor Wang pulled up a chat log, which showed Miao Yusen asking her for the specific operational details of the blasting method. The chat log clearly states that these are the blueprints I gave to Miao Yusen. I was speechless. Since when did chat logs become irrefutable evidence? Professor Wang snorted, his demeanor dripping with arrogance. That's not all. I even called you to ask about the blasting method, and you didn't refute it then, I said patiently. But you never mentioned that Miao Yusen said I gave it to her. Nor did you say this method was intended for tomb excavation. Just then, my phone chimed with a notification. I opened it and smiled. I held up my phone and said slowly, since everyone claims I gave this to Miao Yusen, let's take a look at this. I tapped on the phone, and what appeared was unmistakably a surveillance video. The footage was clearly of my studio. The surveillance footage clearly shows Miao Yusen sneaking in when no one was around, rummaging through my desk, pulling out a few drawings, and then hastily running off. The whole thing was done on the sly, and what she took were precisely those blasting method diagrams meant to be used as evidence against me. Holding up my phone with a cold sneer, I confronted Miao Yusen directly. Didn't you claim I gave you these drawings? So why does the footage make it look like you were the one sneaking in to take them? Miao Yusen's face went pale, her eyes widened, and the words escaped her lips before she could stop them. How could there be surveillance? I crossed my arms and looked at her, my tone icy. If there hadn't been surveillance installed, you would have pinned the crime of slander and harm on me. All eyes turned to Miao Yusen with renewed suspicion. Miao Yusen, these are the blueprints you stole from Su Ken. Didn't you claim she gave them to you? If these are fake, then Su Ken probably didn't order the tomb's demolition either, right? Su Ken's blueprints were stolen. How could she possibly have instructed Miao Yusen to use explosives on the tomb passage? Wow, who knew Miao Yusen was such a liar? Ambiguous glances of all kinds fell upon her, leaving Miao Yusen's face pale. With red-rimmed eyes, she looked at Professor Wang, her expression full of grievance. Professor Wang refused to look at her, his face stiff and unyielding. That's not what she told me. I was deceived too, teacher, Miao Yusen called out, her face a picture of disbelief. I wore a wry, ambiguous smile. If that's the case, why didn't you stop her when she first came to you? Is it that you want to see her fail so you can expose me and bring me down, or is it because you're a bit of a hack yourself, with only a half-baked understanding of this blasting method? Professor Wang's face darkened. He glared at me menacingly, his tone full of threat. Su Ken, I've been around a lot longer than you have. Don't try to pull these tricks on me. I scoffed and didn't press the matter any further. Then, turning back to Miao Yusen with a beaming smile, he said, well, still trying to deny it. Miao Yusen's lips trembled. Clenching her teeth, she forced out a feeble defense. So what? Regardless, this blueprint was found in your desk. The fact that you're studying this stuff just proves you're up to no good. I'm just the one you set up. If not for that, you'd have used it in archaeology yourself someday, just as I thought. Even with irrefutable evidence, she's still hell-bent on dragging me down with her. Before I could retort, another set of footsteps sounded from outside the door. Fang Zhixing had arrived. Professor, I brought everything you asked for. I first took the collection of papers from Fang Zhixing, flipped to a specific page, and spread it open on the desk. I looked at Miao Yusen with a faint, ambiguous smile. Didn't you say I was researching a new blasting method? Why don't you compare those diagrams with the 2 missing pages here? Those drawings were promptly fetched, and the paper itself made it clear they belonged to this book. In the appendix of the thesis collection, several page numbers were missing, which matched the drawings perfectly. Someone was astonished, but this collection was published by Professor Su last year. These drawings have existed for a long time. Only then did I begin to explain, in a leisurely manner, this isn't some new method I've been researching at all. It's actually an illustration from one of my papers on the blasting techniques used by tomb raiders. Surprised, you thought it was a method I developed for excavating ancient tombs, but it's just an illustration that fell out of my collection of research papers. Someone immediately looked up the paper online and said, just as I thought. Miao Yusen had turned deathly pale, unable to utter a single word. At the same time, I took another item from Fang Zhixing's hand, the recorder they used when they descended into the tomb. I looked calmly at Miao Yusen, who seemed on the verge of fainting. Don't pass out now, hang in there a little longer, there's more to see inside. Then I switched on the recorder. The playback showed the exact scene from when we entered the tomb. The angle was from just behind and to the side of Miao Yusen, perfectly capturing details others had missed. Inside the tomb passage, just as Miao Yusen had placed a charge, Fang Zhixing tried to warn her, but Miao Yusen just shot him a glare and proceeded to ignite the fuse on her own. If Fang Zhixing hadn't reacted so quickly, Miao Yusen would have blown herself up and taken the rest of the team with her. Watching the footage, he gave a cold, mirthless smile. Miao Yusen, Zhixing warned you, but you still had to charge ahead on your own. Isn't it you who's all ambition with no skill, using other people's lives to test your reckless ideas? The scene was captured with perfect clarity, leaving Miao Yusen with no room for rebuttal. Her lips parted, but in the end, she closed them in utter defeat. Everyone glared at her with fury, while the person in charge wore a dark, stormy expression. If the recorder hadn't captured this scene, Professor Su would have been wrongfully accused for nothing, Miao Yusen. You're the pot calling the kettle black, you don't have a shred of guilt, do you? Now that the truth is out, a full report of Miao Yusen's actions will be submitted to the higher-ups for them to handle. Miao Yusen glared at me with pure hatred, dropping her pitiful act. Her tone was venomous. Su can, if I couldn't succeed, don't you dare think you can. That tomb is far too difficult, absolutely no one can pull it off. I'm speechless. You're not good enough yourself. Yet you want to drag others down with you. Before I could even speak, another group of people walked in from outside. My student can definitely do it. The moment I heard the voice, I stood up in pleasant surprise and walked toward the door. Professor, what brings you here? At the head of the group was my former mentor, Professor Zhang. Professor Zhang said with a warm smile, after you contacted me the other day, I thought it over and decided to come in person. It's a good chance to see how you're doing. He glanced around the room and gestured toward the equipment being brought in behind him. This is the novel approach Su can conceived, integrating air quality monitoring with archaeology and cultural relic preservation. He produced the minutes from our previous video conference and gave a brief overview. This method maximizes the preservation of unearthed artifacts, preventing fragile relics from oxidizing or turning to dust the moment they leave the tomb. Upon hearing this proposal, the experts present were thrilled, repeatedly hailing it as a groundbreaking innovation. While I was brimming with ambition, ready to forge a new path, things weren't looking so good for Miao Yusen and Wu Yicheng. They damaged the ancient tomb first and slandered me afterward, so they're definitely facing severe punishment. Even Wu Yicheng won't escape disciplinary action. Wu Yicheng, looking utterly miserable, came to me to plead for leniency. I'm your husband, how can you just abandon me? Besides, I was deceived, I didn't know the truth. Ignorance is no crime. Wu Yicheng wore an expression of utter self-righteousness, not feeling in the slightest that he had done anything wrong. Of course, I paid him no mind and said bluntly, whether you're at fault or not is for the judge to decide. Don't think you can get away with the slightest bit of it. Coming to me is useless. His face instantly darkened. How dare you? Miao Miao didn't mean it, and you just stood by and did nothing. Is it really worth making such a big deal over such a small mistake? We're in this mess because of you. If you abandon me now, I'll divorce you. I let out a light laugh and said airily, fine, let's get a divorce then. I stared coldly at Wu Yicheng's mortified expression, enunciating each word deliberately. Mark my words, Wu Yicheng, I gave her a chance. It's Miao Yusen who's utterly useless, and you, don't flatter yourself. I must have been blind, wasting all these years on you. Divorcing you is exactly what I want. Of course, it hasn't happened yet. After all, we're both stuck in this temporary base out in the middle of nowhere. While people were still confined, the news spread like wildfire. Even before Miao Yusen's official disciplinary verdict was announced, she was already as good as blacklisted from the archaeological community. And her advisor, Professor Wang, was dragged down with her. A whole can of worms was opened, revealing numerous misconducts, and he was stripped of all his honors and titles, regardless of their fate. On my end, after discussing several plans with my professor, I packed my gear and headed straight into the ancient tomb. With the experience from my past life, this excavation went much more smoothly. Once inside the tomb, we managed to successfully preserve several artifacts that would have otherwise been lost. The excavation lasted several days. When the first phase wrapped up, the entire team was thrilled, and we held a small celebration that evening. I was seated at the gathering and was persuaded to have quite a few drinks. I scanned the crowd but didn't see Wu Yicheng or Miao Yusen, which struck me as odd. Granted, they probably had no face to show in public right now, but that shouldn't keep them from meals. After a moment's thought, I made a few calls, then stood up and headed out. All the artifacts from this archaeological dig were stored together in a small room. There were only a few keys to the room, so in theory, no one else should have been able to get in. But when I went over, I saw the lock was open and the door was slightly ajar. With a whole group of people behind me, I felt no fear. I walked right up and shoved the door open with a bang. What are you all doing in here? The doorway was wide open, revealing Wu Yicheng and Miao Yusen inside, acting furtively while holding an artifact, clearly up to no good. Upon seeing us, they scrambled to their feet in a panic, trying to flee, but they were no match for my sizable group and were promptly pinned to the ground. With a stern expression, I strode forward and discovered, to my horror, that they were holding the painstakingly preserved bamboo scrolls and were about to snap them in two. I didn't hesitate for a second and immediately began the rescue effort. working frantically for most of the night. When I finally emerged, I went straight to where Wu Yicheng and Miao Yusen were being held. The moment I entered, I slapped them both across the face and kicked them to the ground. If I hadn't been held back, I would have stomped on them a few more times. Wu Yicheng held on the ground. "Su Kan, you're insane, how dare you hit me?" I spat in disgust. "You're an animal. How dare you damage cultural relics? A few slaps from me is getting off easy." With a crazed look, he burst into maniacal laughter. "You drove me to this. Why does everything go your way? Why do you succeed at everything while I'm always in your shadow? Su Kan, you deserve this." I kicked him again. "The police are on their way. You can just sit tight and wait for your jail cell." As the first phase of the ancient tomb excavation wrapped up, the trial for Wu Yicheng and Miao Yusen officially began. Wu Yicheng was sentenced to several years in prison. It was only when the handcuffs were snapped on and the verdict was read that he seemed to realize the gravity of his situation. Begging me for mercy through his tears and sobs, I promptly filed for divorce, and not long after, I was officially divorced from Wu Yicheng. Miao Yusen was also convicted, as an accomplice. Her sentence was 1 year shorter than Wu Yicheng's. I didn't pay much attention to the outside world, focusing entirely on completing the excavation of the ancient tomb. 5 years later, the excavation project for this millennia-old tomb officially concluded. Just as in my previous life, I discovered traces of a new civilization within it, filling a blank chapter in human history. On the strength of this research achievement, I was smoothly promoted to director of the archaeology department at the Cultural Relics Bureau, becoming the youngest chief scientist on a national-level major archaeological project. Since then, I have dedicated myself to excavating the remnants of the new civilization, focusing my research in this area and earning the title of the foremost archaeologist of the new civilization. Several years passed in this manner, and Miao Yusen and Wu Yicheng were released from prison, one after the other. I had lost track of time, so I was surprised to see them featured in the news. 2 grave robbers killed in dispute over loot, remaining suspects apprehended. I saw the headline, clicked on it, and was shocked to find it was about Miao Yusen and Wu Yicheng. Their identities are an open secret, whispered about in archaeological circles, so I eventually pieced together the whole story. It turns out, after her release, Miao Yusen couldn't find legitimate work in archaeology and, just like in a past life, fell back into tomb raiding with a gang of looters. Later, when Wu Yicheng got out, she roped him into the operation too. A group of grave robbers, deep in the remote mountains, stumbled upon a surprisingly rich ancient tomb filled with gold, silver, and jewels, but with so much loot, everyone wanted the lion's share. Wu Yicheng and Miao Yusen banded together to stand up to the robbers, underestimating their viciousness. They were caught off guard and stabbed to death. Anyone who hears the story can't help but sigh and shake their head. Serves them right. People with no sense of reverence shouldn't be left in this world to cause more harm. Moreover, because they had vandalized so many ancient tombs, our archaeological team had to rush to multiple sites for emergency repairs. Many of the tombs were left in a complete state of ruin. My fellow team members were furious. They couldn't understand how 2 former archaeologists could sink so low as to join forces with grave robbers, completely abandoning any sense of principle. I didn't feel much of anything. After all, I had long been acquainted with their rock-bottom sense of morality. After this incident, their legacy was utterly tarnished, becoming the cautionary tale everyone uses to warn the younger generation. No one will remember or honor them anymore, and I am no exception. The field of archaeology continues to advance, and I will dedicate myself to it, unwavering in my commitment. Story 2. I heard Shinji's coquettish laughter. Who likes Gusi? I just want to see the aloof academic god fall into the mud and become a lovesick fool. I told my childhood friend Gusi what she said. Shinji's confession failed. That very night, news broke that Shinji had jumped to her death from the school building. Gusi seemed unaffected and simply carried on with his studies and life. Later, after achieving fame and success, he married me. Little did I know, this was the beginning of my nightmare. In the end, he even tied me to the bed and burned me alive. Just before the flames consumed me, he said with eyes full of hatred, "It's all your fault." That day, I was going to accept Gigi's confession. If I could do it all over again. I'm done with Gusi. I'll just stand by and watch him be the young mistress's lapdog. Hello everyone, and welcome to Glimmering Whispers of Love. Gusi, have you lost your mind? You've kept me locked up here for 3 days. Isn't that enough? I didn't kill Shinji back then. You heard the police. The school railing was faulty. Her death was an accident. tied to the bed by Gusi. I struggled desperately, crying and screaming until my voice was hoarse. Gusi, I'm not lying to you. Even Shinji's best friend said it. That day, Shinji was only acting. She pretended to jump, just to lure you there. Who knew she would actually fall? It was all an accident. Yet Gusi remained unmoved, gently stroking my head. He said, Lin Xiaxia, this entire story is just your version of events. You have feelings for me, don't you? That year, you were terrified I would accept Gigi's confession, so you lied to me. You told me she was toying with me. You caused all of this. You're the one who killed her. His movements were gentle, but his tone was icy cold, sending a chill down one's spine. Tears streamed down my face as I shook my head desperately. I really did hear Shinji tell her best friend that she doesn't like Gusi. She's only pursuing him to knock him off his pedestal. I admit, I did have feelings for him once. Gusi is incredibly handsome, and we grew up together. He always treated me differently from everyone else. It was hard not to fall for him. But I wouldn't casually frame someone. I thought Gusi understood me. So, clinging to a faint glimmer of hope in my heart, I pleaded earnestly, Gusi, don't you know me? I wouldn't slander Shinji just for your sake. Believe me. I'm begging you to believe me. Let me go, and I'll pretend none of this ever happened. Gusi said nothing, remaining silent for a long time. After a long while, he lit a cigarette and looked at me coldly, his eyes full of mockery. Lin Xiaxia, I've known for a long time that you've had feelings for me, for years, but to be honest, aside from your academic performance, you fall short of Shinji in every other way, family background, looks, everything. I trusted you completely, and I deeply regret ever taking your words at face value. Xiaxia, you made a mistake, and now you must face the consequences. Something inside me slowly sank and shattered. I thought all those years of growing up together meant he understood me. Turns out, I was wrong. Little did I know, he not only didn't believe me, but he actually hated me. His hatred for me ran bone deep. Marrying me was all part of his revenge. So, that aloof, untouchable persona he used to coldly reject Shinji back then, it was all an act. He's clearly into Shinji. I wanted to scream at him, to tell him he's insane. If he liked Shinji, he should have said so sooner. It's not like I'm hung up on him, but I didn't dare provoke him, afraid he'd spiral even further. He blew out a smoke ring, his tone detached. Did you know, Gigi left me a love letter, filled with her affection for me. How could she not love me? How could she possibly be playing me? Gigi is dead. She proved her love for me with her death. His face was calm, a gentle light shining in his eyes, as if he was looking through me, gazing back at those youthful days that can never return. He pressed the still-lit cigarette butt against my skin. The cigarette end sizzled faintly against my skin, and I could almost smell the acrid scent of burning flesh. A jolt of pain shuddered through my body. Gusi's expression grew increasingly tender and affectionate, the flame from his lighter illuminating his clean, sharp jawline. Finally, he made the definitive call. It's all your fault that Shinji is dead. Lin Xiaxia, you can go keep her company now. I saw the resolve in his eyes. I knew he wasn't going to let me go. I screamed in utter despair. Gusi, you're insane. I had nothing to do with Shinji's death. Let me go. This is illegal. I struggled desperately, the ropes cutting angry red welts into my wrists, but I couldn't break free. The air all around grew searing hot, flames leaping skyward. In the final moment before the inferno consumed me, I heard him say, it's all your fault. That day, I was going to accept Gigi's confession, amidst the agony of being burned alive. I finally understood. He had never stopped thinking about Shinji. When I opened my eyes again, I felt a sharp pain in my lower abdomen, and my legs were weak and shaky. I nearly lost my balance and fell into the pit, steadying myself against the stall door. I looked down and realized I was squatting in a school bathroom stall, my bowels emptying in a violent rush. I was still feeling a bit lost when I heard a familiar voice coming from the cubicle next door. Shinji's best friend teased, so, Missy, do you really have a thing for Gusi? Shinji scoffed playfully, as if, I just want to see the aloof academic god fall from his pedestal and act like a lovesick puppy. I'm just toying with him, that's all. A moment later, Shinji lowered her voice and said to her friend, oh, well, I actually made a bet with Han Xian. You mustn't tell anyone. Okay, we bet that if I could make Gusi fall for me to the point where he'd choose a vocational college for his university entrance exam just for me, then he'd give me all his allowance for 3 months to buy a bag. So that's what this is about. So, my childhood friend Gusi's entire future was nothing more than a trivial little wager to those rich kids. I never imagined that my death in my past life stemmed from such a petty joke. Leaning against the wall, I tried to calm myself, not even daring to breathe too loudly. It was then that I realized, I had been reborn. I was reborn on the very day I overheard Shinji's conversation with her best friend. What did I do in my past life? The moment I heard Shinji say, "I'm just toying with him," I rushed out and interrupted their talk, and I told my childhood friend, Gusi, all about it. I had no idea there was more to it. Shinji's intentions were truly this malicious. Not only did she want to play with Gusi's feelings, she also wanted him to apply to a junior college for her sake. You have to understand. Gusi was prime material for a top-tier university. Choosing a junior college would have ruined his future. In my past life, I saved Gusi's future. I never could have imagined I was saving an ungrateful wretch. In this life, I'm dying to see the look on Gusi's face, the top student, when he plummets into the abyss and his future lies in ruins. Only after Shinji and her best friend had walked away did she finally rub her leg and slowly step out of the toilet stall. When I returned to the classroom, Gusi was quietly working on his test paper, a pen held in his slender, well-defined hand. It was then that I remembered, Gusi and I were desk mates. I was sitting in the seat against the wall. To get in, I'd have to pass by Gusi. Seeing Gusi again brought back the memory of the searing pain that had burned through my body. I couldn't help but go pale, suppressing the fear inside. I spoke in the calmest voice I could muster. "Excuse me, I need to get through." Hearing me, Gusi made a narrow opening. I rudely shoved my way in, knocking all the test papers off his desk onto the floor. Gusi picked up the papers. Instead of getting angry about them falling, he said to me with concern, "What's wrong? You look so pale. Is your blood sugar low again?" He deftly pulled a white rabbit milk candy from his desk and pressed it into my palm. Then, patting my head, he said, "Here, Shushya, have this candy. You'll feel better in no time." I clenched the milk candy in my palm so tightly that the warmth of my hand melted it, making the wrapper all sticky. Yet, I was completely oblivious. My mind was filled with nothing but Gusi's recent movements and expression. Here we go again, that same misleading tone. I used to feel a flutter of excitement because of this difference, but now it just makes me sick. It's like a melted white rabbit candy in your hand, sticky, cloying, and disgusting. Back then, whenever I turned pale, he would look at me with that same anxious expression and whisper words of comfort. He was cold and distant to everyone else, but with me, he was always gentle and patient. His behavior made me believe, for a time, that I was special to him. That's why I never gave Shinji a second thought, because whenever Gusi mentioned Shinji to me, his eyes were always filled with impatience, a stark contrast to the tenderness he showed me. I really can't stand Shinji, that spoiled rich girl. She just coasts into the honors class because her dad's loaded, without having to lift a finger. Honestly, with grades like hers, having her in our class is a complete waste of educational resources. Everyone else is actually studying hard, but she's just slacking off, dragging down our class average. I can't believe Shinji said she likes me. A high and mighty princess like her is even capable of liking someone. Shinji is so annoying. Does a spoiled girl like her just not get it? I've turned her down several times, and she still insists on clinging to me. Once again, Gusi uttered these words in a cold, detached tone. He was working through a set of math problems. He was completely oblivious to Shinji's presence right beside him. It wasn't until a loud thud broke the silence. Shinji had knocked her water cup to the floor. Sobbing, she ran out of the classroom. Only then did he look up, his pen falling still. He watched her retreating figure disappear from the doorway. Lost in thought for a long while, after that day, Shinji rarely came to school for classes. Because of that, I never connected Shinji with him. It wasn't until much later, when did things actually start to change. It was during a book handout. The class monitor counted the books and realized there was exactly one short, so, the monitor handed out books to everyone in the class, except for Shinji. There was a loud riot. Gusi stood up from his seat, the sudden movement scraping his chair and desk against the floor with a harsh, grating sound. He asked, "Monitor, why isn't there a book for Shinji?" The class monitor replied impatiently, "You know how it is. A rich girl like Shinji skips class all the time. Having a book or not makes no difference to her. Her father donated a whole building to the school. No one here is going to hold her accountable. Her family's loaded. She probably doesn't even need to take the college entrance exam. She'll just go abroad for a fancy degree later. What does she need books for?" Hearing this, Gusi handed his own textbook to her. "Shinji, Are you going to skip class again in the future? Shinji smiled. Her smile was radiant and captivating. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and said, "If you tell me not to skip class, I won't skip class ever again." A faint smile tugged at the corner of Gusie's mouth. But he quickly suppressed it. He nodded calmly. That smile vanished too quickly. As if it were just my imagination, watching the scene, I felt a pang of strangeness at the time. Gusie never usually bothers with such trivial matters. Why would he go out of his way to help Shinji today? But in the end, I said nothing. That whole day, in every class, Gusie shared my textbook, reading alongside me. He never once turned to look at Shinji. He just kept making mistakes in his notes, crossing out line after line. Looking back now, the signs were all there from the very beginning. I snapped back to reality, wiped the sticky residue from my hand with a napkin, and threw it, along with the piece of candy, into the trash. Shinji happened to walk in from outside the classroom. She was a world apart from the rest of us in our dowdy school uniforms. Every inch of her, from her perfectly manicured toes to the tips of her hair, was immaculate, and she carried a lovely, delicate fragrance. She was stunningly beautiful, with a head of lush, cascading waves, fair skin, and a smile that was bold and radiant. She leaned in close to Gusie, her flowing hair brushing against his shoulder. In a saccharine sweet tone, she whispered into his ear, "ACI, meet me in the alley behind the school tonight. There's something important I need to tell you, about us." Gusie's expression remained calm, but his lips trembled slightly. He didn't answer, as if giving a silent refusal, yet I noticed the pen in his hand paused for a moment while he was writing the exam, and a faint blush crept up to the tips of his ears. That's when I realized his heart was in turmoil. I was blind and foolish before, I just couldn't see it, but now, I've finally seen the light. Shinji wanted to say more to Gusie, but just then, the class bell rang. Only then did Shinji reluctantly return to her seat. I quickly composed myself and threw myself wholeheartedly into the lesson. During class, I was astonished to find that my memories of the first 17 years of my life were incredibly vivid. In contrast, everything from my previous life felt like a dream. If not for the excruciating pain of my death being seared into my memory, I even began to wonder, in a daze, if my entire past life had been nothing but a dream. But that's even better. All the high school knowledge is still fresh in my mind. If I just double down on my efforts now, I can get into a better university than in my previous life. Time really flies when you're focused on studying. And just like that, the school day was over. When school let out, Gusie's movements as he packed his bag became slow and deliberate, as if he was hesitating about something. He asked me, "Xia, Shinji said she needs to talk to me after school. Do you think I should go?" Hearing Gusie's words, I was reminded of what he had said to me in my past life. Just before I died, that day, I was actually going to accept Shinji's confession. So, he had already had an inkling that Shinji was about to confess her feelings to him. He once said that if I hadn't deceived him, he would have been with Shinji long ago. How ridiculous. In that case, what is he still hesitating for? Besides, if he truly only loved Shinji, then why did he propose to me and sleep with me in the first place? What a scumbag, wanting to have his cake and eat it too. Xia. In the quiet classroom, Gusie's call snapped me back to reality. Do you think I should go? I knew exactly what he wanted to hear. So, without a flicker of emotion, I lowered my gaze to hide the hatred in my heart. "Gusie, I think you should go. Shinji is a young lady from a wealthy family. For someone like her to humble herself and pursue you for this long, it can't have been easy. A girl from a wealthy family like her has a thin skin. If you don't go, what if she does something drastic in her despair? Who will be responsible then?" Hearing my words, a flicker of curiosity colored Gusie's otherwise calm eyes. "You really think so?" I nodded emphatically, a hint of impatience creeping into my tone. "Gusie, even though we grew up together, to be honest, we were never that close. I'll answer your questions about you and Shinji this one time only. From now on, could you please stop bothering me with your issues? I just want to focus on my studies. Don't keep disturbing me anymore." Gusie was taken aback, as if he hadn't expected me to say that. He raised an eyebrow, a look of understanding dawning on his face. "Xia, you're being so sarcastic. Are you angry? You weren't so petty before. I've told you already, there's nothing between us. If there were, we'd have been together long ago." I wearily pressed my hand to my forehead, a sense of panic beginning to stir inside me. I was terrified that Gusie would try to pin Shinji's mess on me again. I was just about to argue back. Suddenly, Gusie's phone rang. Hello, Shinji, a plaintive voice came through the phone. Gussie, I've been waiting for you for so long, why aren't you here yet? Just come this once, okay? Shinji's voice was soft and sweet, with a lilting, upward inflection that sounded like a coquettish plea. She came from a privileged family, carrying an air of natural refinement. Every time I see her, she's haughty, radiant, and flamboyant. It's hard to imagine a young lady like her ever lowering her head to act coquettish. I suppose no man could refuse such a passionate and stunningly beautiful heiress. Sure enough, a faint smirk tugged at the corner of Gussie's mouth. He quickened his pace as he packed his bag, gave my cheek a pinch, and said, Shushya, be good, don't fuss. I'm going to find Shinji first. I'll bring you your favorite grilled starch sausage when I get back tonight. At the mention of the familiar starch sausage, my thoughts began to wander again. I couldn't help but think of my past life. In his past life, Gussie's family circumstances were quite poor. His father passed away from stomach cancer when he was very young, and it was his mother who single-handedly raised him. His mother worked as a factory laborer, earning a limited wage, so she couldn't give him much for his living expenses. My mother, kind-hearted and seeing them as a poor widow and her child who were also our next-door neighbors, would often send me over with things like chicken soup. After a few back and forths, Gussie and I became quite familiar. We've been in the same class since elementary school. All these years, you could say we're childhood sweethearts, having received kindness from my family since he was young. He always felt the need to buy me something in return. To save him money, I lied. Even though I love little cakes, I told him my favorite snack was those cheap street vendor sausages. Honestly, I didn't like it that much at all. I only said so to spare his feelings. So, when I heard Shinji say she wanted to drag him down into the mud and mess with him, all I could think about was that I had to stop Shinji from doing it. And I succeeded. Gussie got into a top-tier university, a 985 institution. Even after his mother's sudden and unexpected death following his college entrance exams, he still managed to put himself through university with money from summer jobs and scholarships. After graduation, his career took off without a hitch, and he was soon earning $1 million a year. Back then, I was genuinely so happy for him. I just never expected that he would come to resent me. After gaining my trust and marrying me, he bought a large villa specifically to imprison and torture me. In the end, he even staged a fire to make it look like an accident, burning me alive. Thinking of all this, I feel I wasn't worth it back then. I can almost feel that searing, bone-deep pain all over again. I hung my head, gripping the hem of my clothes so tightly that the knuckles of my fingers turned white with strain. Gussie didn't notice my distress in the slightest and quickly strode out of the classroom. After he left, a wave of nausea churned in my stomach. I rushed to the bathroom and frantically splashed cold water on my face, over and over, where Gussie had just touched me. Only after I had gathered my thoughts did I sling my backpack over my shoulder, leave the classroom, and head home. While I was grinding through practice problems at home, I kept my phone on silent the entire time. It wasn't until I had finished my study session that I finally saw Shinji's WeChat Moments post. Her post was a single heart emoji, accompanied by a picture of Gussie's back as he walked away, carrying Shinji's school bag in his hand. I breathed a sigh of relief. Thank goodness, they finally got together without a hitch. I secretly prayed they'd be stuck with each other for life and stop ruining other people's chances. The next day at school, I noticed Gussie was wearing sneakers worth several thousand. No need to think about it. Shinji must have given them to him. I let out a cold snort. Shifting my seat further in to put some distance between us, we both tacitly avoided mentioning the sausage incident, and he too began keeping his distance from me, whether intentionally or not. Shinji didn't let me down. Although her grades weren't great, she was, after all, a young lady from a wealthy family with exceptionally high emotional intelligence. Thanks to her deliberate efforts to please him, she and Gussie got along quite pleasantly. They would have lunched together in the school cafeteria, coming and going as a pair, chatting and laughing all the while. She would occasionally give Gussie small gifts, always with perfectly judged reasons and a sense of propriety that never made anyone feel awkward. What was even more commendable was her intelligence. She never encouraged Gussie to skip class. She knew that asking Gussie to skip class outright would never fly. He'd never agree to it, and it would only make him suspicious. Besides, with the college entrance exam just over 3 months away, it was nearly impossible to make a top student's grades plummet in such a short time. The only way was to get inside his head, to make Gussie willingly choose a junior college for the sake of love. So, she started putting on an act. the slacker student, inspired by love, turning over a new leaf and hitting the books. She was always saying things like, "I want to give it my all so I can get into the same university as you." I often saw Gusi taking the initiative to tutor her. Gradually, Shinji's reputation in our class improved. Everyone started to see her as that love-struck, slightly foolish girl. Every now and then while studying, she would also break down in tears, looking utterly pitiful. "Gusi, I'm so hopeless. I just can't seem to learn this. No matter how hard I try. Gusi, I won't give up. I'm determined to get into the same university as you. Gusi, between us, if you find it difficult, then I'll take the first 99 steps. You only need to take the final one." Her face, tear-streaked yet feigning strength, was like a flower that invited nothing but pity. If I hadn't overheard her plans, I would have been moved to tears on the spot, let alone the person involved. Gusi, at this restless age, being loved so wholeheartedly by a girl like that would make even a deity yearn for mortal life. Moreover, Shinji greatly satisfied his male ego. However, I was the only one who truly understood the meaning behind Shinji's final step. That final step was to have Gusi apply to a junior college, plunging him into the abyss. I couldn't help but sigh, finding pleasure in ruining someone else's life. The games of the wealthy are truly, profoundly banal. Recently, with both his academic and romantic life flourishing, Gusi was riding high, brimming with confidence and ambition. I often hear his buddies teasing him with envy. "Brother Gu, you must have done something incredible in 8 past lives to have a rich, beautiful girlfriend like Shinji chasing after you. If I were you, I'd drop out of school right now and just marry her. Marrying her would cut your hustle by at least 30 years. I heard she's the sole heiress to the Shin group. But, Brother Gu, looking at how hard the young miss is pushing herself, if she doesn't manage to get into the same university as you in the end, won't she be so heartbroken she'll cry for 3 days and 3 nights? Of course, it wasn't all admiration. There was plenty of gossip and snide remarks too. Take right now, for instance, a guy, deliberately waiting until Shinji was gone, said with a sour tone, "Gusi, don't get cocky. A poor guy like you is way out of your league with Shinji. She's a rich girl from a good family. Once you're at different universities, she'll definitely dump you." Gusi remained expressionless on the surface, yet I keenly noticed a slight tremor in Gusi's hand as he held his pen. I quickly struck up a conversation with the classmate in front of me, subtly steering the topic towards Shinji. I said, "Honestly, I really admire Shinji. I'm absolutely convinced she's sincere, but distance is a real killer. So many couples break up because of it, and Shinji is working so hard. She's from a wealthy family. She could have just gone abroad to study without all this struggle. Yet she's made such a huge sacrifice. I feel like Shinji has already fought her way forward 99 steps. The question is whether Gusi is willing to take one step back for her, to attend a less prestigious university together." I kept talking while watching Gusi's reaction out of the corner of my eye. I noticed his pen had been still for a long time, as if he was deep in thought. I was sure my words had gotten through to him. A secret thrill of satisfaction ran through me. "Oh, Gusi, please don't let me down. Don't let yourself sink any deeper. The deeper you fall, the harder you crash." Time rushes by, never pausing. During this time, I could feel Gusi sinking deeper and deeper. He started waiting on Shinji hand and foot, bringing her breakfast and filling her water bottle. He even massaged her stomach and bought her sanitary pads when she was on her period. The whole act was just like that of a loyal dog. Meanwhile, I quietly hit the books while they were busy with their sweet nothings. In the blink of an eye, the college entrance exam was over, and the day to check scores arrived. I performed exceptionally well, ranking within the top 50 in the province, a score so high it's withheld from public lists. Both Tsinghua and Peking University were calling, competing to recruit me. As for Gusi, just like in my past life, he scored high enough to get into a top-tier 985 university. As for Shinji, she still didn't meet the minimum score for a bachelor's degree program and could only apply to a junior college. The day after the results came out, we all met up at a KTV to have our farewell party. Once at the KTV, I deliberately sat next to Gusi and Shinji to get a front row seat for the drama. Gusi was still indecisive about filling out his college applications. He seemed deeply troubled, downing one bottle of beer after another in silence. Shinji didn't press him. Instead, with red-rimmed eyes, she first adopted a pitiful, tactical retreat. "I really want to be at the same school and in the same class as you, but it's okay if we're not. We don't have to go to the same university, I just don't know if we're at different schools, in different majors, whether our free time will ever line up, whether we'll still be able to get together. I really, really want to be with you, but for your sake, I can compromise." Seeing a flicker of hesitation in Gucci's expression, she pressed on, "Gucci, I mean, if you're willing to apply to the same university as me, I'll give myself to you on the day the acceptance letters come out. I know what you're afraid of losing, and I want you to know I'm deadly serious about this. I've thought it through. We could have a child while we're in college. That way, my father wouldn't be able to object to us anymore. Once the child is a bit older, we'll take him with us to study abroad and further our education." I stood there listening, utterly dumbfounded. I could hardly resist giving Shinji a round of applause, marveling at how incredibly skillful she was. What she said was enough to move any man who heard it. I just wonder, when the truth finally comes out, whether Gucci will be able to handle the fact that she's been toying with him like a dog. I'm absolutely dying to see it. That day, Gucci still didn't give a direct answer. Maybe it was the heavy drinking, or perhaps the immense psychological pressure. The very next day, Gucci came down with a fever. I only found out because his mother asked me to look after her son. Hearing that, a flicker of amusement crossed my eyes. I promptly contacted Shinji. They say a person is at their most vulnerable when they're sick. If a high society lady like Shinji comes to take care of Gucci, how could he possibly resist? It seems even fate is on our side. That day, the rain came down in torrents. I had already bought porridge and medicine, waiting for the young lady's arrival. I was waiting by the entrance, and as soon as I saw the Rolls-Royce, I rushed forward. After Shinji got out, the car quickly drove away. I saw the young mistress holding an umbrella, so I quickly knocked it out of her hand. Shinji was drenched by the rain, and she was just about to lose her temper. I quickly said, "Young mistress, standing in the rain like this, completely soaked, you look so fragile and utterly captivating. I'm sure Gucci will be deeply moved." Shinji immediately understood what I meant. She took the porridge and medicine from my hands without a word and followed me upstairs. I used the key to open the door to Gucci's apartment with practiced ease. Once Shinji was inside, I quietly closed the door behind them. Just as I predicted, under Shinji's gentle persuasion, Gucci ultimately chose to apply for a vocational college. When I got the news, I was so thrilled that I wolfed down 3 bowls of rice that evening. I'm not sure if it was out of a desire to show off, or some other impulse. Just before bed, Shinji sent me a video. In the dimly lit room, Gucci was disheveled, his face clearly visible. The other person in the video seemed to be deliberately hidden, with only a foot in view. That foot slid slowly up from his abs until it came to rest under Gucci's chin. Tilting his head up, Gucci's chest heaved violently, clearly deeply agitated, yet he dared not move a muscle. In the video, Gucci bore no resemblance to his usual aloof, top student self. He looked like a puppy waiting for its master's affection, utterly pathetic. The day Gucci's acceptance letter arrived, Shinji invited me to a party, saying there was quite a show in store for me. My heart was pounding, and I had a feeling a pleasant surprise was coming. I quietly kept an eye on the activity across the hall. I saw Gucci from across the hall pick up his acceptance letter. A smile touched his usually cool, sharp eyes as he hurried off towards the booked private room for the gathering. Only then did I put on my shoes and follow him to the party venue at a leisurely pace. We entered the private room, and the door was shut behind us. I saw several rich kids were already there, including Han Xian, the one who had made the bet with Shinji. Everyone stood with their arms crossed, wearing expressions of eager anticipation. But Gucci remained completely oblivious, lost in the joy of soon having Shinji for himself. He presented the admission letter to Shinji as if it were a prized treasure. "Gigi, look, I got the acceptance letter. We're going to the same school." Shinji took the letter, saw that it was from Nanzhou Vocational Technical College, and a smug smile curled at the corner of her lips. "Good boy, you did well." Gucci's expression stiffened. He said awkwardly, "Gigi, don't call me that in public." Shinji ignored him, turning instead towards Han Xian with a coquettish laugh. "Xian, look, Gucci really did enroll me in that college. I won the bet. Remember, don't forget to buy me that bag I love." All right, princess, you've really put up with a lot lately. We'll buy it, any bag you like, we'll get it." Han Xian wrapped his arm around Shinji's waist, his eyes filled with adoration. He looked Gucci up and down with disdain and said, "Oh, the great academic prodigy, Gu, what was it you said about me before, that us rich kids are just lucky, that without our parents, we couldn't even get into a decent university. TSK, so what's the story now? Now you're willingly acting like a lapdog for my Gigi. Look at the pathetic school you managed to get into. This is it, a worthless vocational college. Goosey froze, his eyes wide with utter disbelief. He could hardly believe what he had just heard. He swayed unsteadily, his face deathly pale as he pointed a trembling finger at the crowd and stammered, What are you all saying? Staggering forward, he tried to grab hold of Shinji. To his surprise, Shinji hastily took 2 steps back, snatched a wine glass from the table, and threw its contents right in his face. Goosey, you heard me right, I'm toying with you like a dog, you're so pathetic. You'd even get off on me stepping on you, it's disgusting, trash, you really are just trash. Shinji, how dare you call me disgusting? Goosey was trembling with rage, wanting to grab at Shinji again, but was held back by the others, soaked to the bone, with liquor matting his hair and stinging his eyes. He cut a pathetic figure. Well, looks like Goosey isn't just stupid, he's deaf too, can't understand plain speech. A young man from a wealthy family jeered from the sidelines. Once someone broke the ice, the others joined in the mockery. Honestly, look at Goosey, who does he think he is? Some penniless nobody actually believing he's good enough for the sole heiress of the Shin group. Pfft, ha 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 ha, what an idiot. I think he's lost his damn mind. Just look at his clothes. Probably cost less than $500 total. How pathetic. I hid quietly behind those rich kids, listening in with immense satisfaction. Goosey wanted to rush forward and throw a punch. Han Xian's voice drawled out a lazy threat. Everyone in this private room is from a wealthy family. If you dare lay a hand on anyone, you'd better watch out. Han Xian left his sentence hanging, but anyone could grasp the unspoken implication. Goosey's expression shifted through a series of changes. But in the end, his clenched fist relaxed. He seemed to have had his backbone ripped out. His once straight, proud posture, as upright as a pine or bamboo, began to slump. Watching Goosey teetering on the brink, trampled into the mud, I was reminded of what he had said in our past life. He said, Gigi left me a love letter, filled with her affection for me. How could she not love me? How could she possibly be toying with me? See, this is what Goosey calls love, indeed. One must let go of the urge to intervene and respect the paths others choose. If someone is eager to be a rich girl's lapdog, it's best not to stand in their way. Suddenly, Goosey's phone rang. He fumbled to answer it, accidentally hitting the speaker button, and an urgent voice came through the line. Hello, are you a family member of Li Chuiying? Li Chuiying just suffered a sudden acute myocardial infarction. Despite resuscitation efforts, she passed away on the scene. Upon hearing the news of his mother's sudden death, Goosey's mind went blank with a deafening roar, and he collapsed into unconsciousness right then and there. Seeing this, the crowd immediately scattered in a panic. Everyone was afraid of getting involved, and not a single soul was willing to lend Goosey a hand. I also slipped away amidst the chaos. The next time I heard about Goosey was while I was packing my bags for university. Goosey was on the news. He had completely lost his mind. He had secretly stalked Shinji for 3 days and nights. Finally seizing his chance, he stabbed her 18 times. Shinji died on the spot, and he was arrested on the scene by the police and taken to prison. Goosey was convicted of intentional homicide under aggravated circumstances and sentenced to death. Just before he died, I got a call from the police saying Goosey wanted to see me. After much hesitation, I finally decided to go, through the transparent glass of the visitation room. I saw Goosey pick up the phone, his eyes filled with venom, and he snarled, why didn't you tell me that Shinji was playing me? My future wasn't supposed to be like this. I should be a winner in life, a social elite earning millions a year. Lin Xiaxia, why has everything changed? Looking into Goosey's clouded eyes, I knew the familiar Goosey from my past life had returned. I leaned close to the phone and chuckled softly. Goosey, isn't this what you wanted? Goosey's eyes were wide with shock, bloodshot and filled with utter disbelief. You've been reborn too. No, wait, you were reborn a long time ago, I said calmly. Goosey, in our past life, didn't you insist that Shinji loved you? Didn't you accuse me of lying? If that's the case, what's with this hysterical fit you're throwing now? I looked at his disheveled state with an amused smile and teased, what's the matter? Not a fan of your current state. I, for one, am absolutely delighted. Hearing my words, Goosey completely broke down. His face was contorted with rage as he frantically smashed his head against the glass, blood streaming down his forehead, yet he refused to stop. I, however, hung up the phone, smoothed out the wrinkles on my clothes, and left the visitation room with a light, brisk step. Stepping outside, the sunlight washed over me, and I felt as if I had been reborn. In that moment, I understood that the past would dissipate like mist and smoke. My future will be radiant and brilliant. That's all for today's story. If you've listened this far, please leave a comment saying, "Have a great day every day." Wagwan wishes everyone happiness each and every day.